Welcome to Math Fiction, the podcast where two or more nerd icons face off in a battle of strength, or wit, or seductive accent, and we figure out who would win. This week, Zorro versus Inigo Montoya. It's business as usual for Don Diego de la Vega, also known as Zorro. He's just exposed yet another corrupt Spanish governor that had been oppressing the people of California, and marked said governor with his iconic first initial. However, this time, the wily governor managed to slip away at the last minute and fled across the sea to Europe, seeking to buy asylum in the obscure and morally unsound country of Wesselton, which, as we all know, does not extradite criminals that are willing to pay the proper amount to the proper authorities. However, this does not stop our masked hero, who respects no laws and no borders apart from his own moral compass, who pursues his foe across the ocean and chases him through many European countries, known and unknown, real and fictional alike. He reaches a bit of a snag, however, when passing through the country of Arendelle. That is because also passing through Arendelle at this moment is the only man who can swing swords and buckle swashes as well as Zorro can, and some might say even better. His name is Inigo Montoya. I'll let the advocates finish that sentence when the appropriate minute comes. Inigo Montoya, following up on a lead of the last known whereabouts of the six-fingered man, finds himself passing through Arendelle on that very same night. While sitting on opposite sides of the same bar, our two rapier-clad heroes. Are you clad in a rapier, or that means like wearing?
I was
right?
about to ask about that.
Okay.
That's like, I'm imagining a whole like clothing composed of rapiers.
I'm wearing a rapier and nothing else.
Yes.
It goes with the zany sexiness of it all.
Yeah. All right. Our two rapier-clad heroes overhear a drunkard talking about the most beautiful woman in the kingdom, the mysterious and reclusive Princess Elsa. Although her younger sister has run off with some other dude, get this, fellas, Elsa is still single. Both Zorro and Inigo sneak off in the dead of night and past the palace guards to get a glimpse of the mysterious Elsa. Both climb up to her balcony when they spot each other, each mistaking the other for a burglar attempting to harm their true love. They draw their swords and begin to duel. Princess Elsa is awoken to the sight of the two stunningly handsome Spanish gentlemen dueling on her balcony. Whoever wins the sword fight will get to claim that they were the one protecting her, and whoever loses will be dragged away by the palace guards to jail. But who will come out on top of this overly long, chandelier swinging, lots of jumping and running up and down stairs-ing, castle sprawling and swashbuckling duel? I have no idea. That is why I, Colin Mulcairn, am going to be your judge this week. Advocating for Team Inigo Montoya is Dan Mulcairn.
Fool! You fell victim to one of the classic blunders. The most famous is never get involved in a treasure hunt in Hyrule, but only slightly less well known is this: never go in against a Mulcairn when Smash Fiction is on the line.
And fan of the show and friend of all of us, Anton Balane.
Hello, my name is Inigo Montoya. You killed my father. Prepare to die.
Why mess with the classic?
Yep.
So happy we got that done just out of the way right off the bat. Needed to happen.
All right. And advocating for Team Zorro is Miles Schneiderman.
Those are some nice scars on your cheeks, Inigo. All you need now is a Z.
And fan of the show and enemy to all humanity, Brad Bultman.
This Zorro comes upon you like a graveyard ghost, and like a ghost, he disappears.
I think
Damn straight.
I think it's appropriate that in a fight with two individuals fighting with large phallic objects, we have an all-male cast today.
Indeed.
Yeah, and we have our first guest host.
Indeed.
Here. So thank you so much to
welcome,
Brad and
guys.
Anton for coming on the show.
In order to see which team was going to go first this week, we took bets on which stars in a distant galaxy would go supernova first. And we're still waiting. None of them have gone supernova yet, so we just decided to flip a coin at the last minute. And Team Inigo won the coin flip, so you are going to go first. Team Inigo Montoya, take it away.
Inigo is a master of perfect, honest, and understated threats. He will hunt Zorro down, defeat him, not finish until he is done the deed, i.e. done in Zorro. Who, by the way, that wardrobe, very impractical for a fight. To quote Edna from The Incredibles, we do not wear capes. Zorro toys with his opponents. Inigo immediately gets down to business, like I said, and ensures that he is not done until the guy is done. And may I just add that unlike the pastiche that Inigo Montoya is based on, Oberyn Martell, he will not toy with his opponents the way Zorro will. Zorro I mean, let's be fair. He escaped a duel that he was gonna lose, broke his leg, and had to be replaced by his gay brother Ramon, aka Bunny Wigglesworth.
What?
Zorro the Gay Blade. Look it up.
Zorro the Gay Blade.
Okay.
George Hamilton defining role.
Yeah, if this was a horse race, I'd probably give it to Zorro. If this was a cool hat-wearing competition, then Zorro's got it. If this was a test to see how well you could hold down a dual identity, well, I mean, Zorro's not that great at that either, but he'd probably still win by default. But this isn't any one of those things. This is a sword fight, and Zorro is good at many things, but Inigo has mastered the sword. To put it in D&D terms,
Only a matter of time.
Yeah.
Take a shot.
Zorro has spent a lot of levels getting reasonably good at a whole lot of things, while all of Inigo's feats, skills, and ability choices have gone into sword fighting. There is simply no human who can equal him in this. Inigo is easily the greatest swordsman, not just of his generation, but of any generation. He holds the rank of wizard, a rank which does not exist in our world because it had to be made up to attempt to encapsulate how incredible this man's skills are. Multiple times in The Princess Bride, the author remarks that Inigo Montoya is the greatest swordsman in history, and not just history up to the point in time when the story takes place, all of history. There's a couple of different and conflicting versions of Zorro, but in every version, he begins training himself in his skills when he's well into adulthood. Inigo's journey began when he was 10, after his father was killed. Even before that point, he was a natural genius with the sword, but his father's murder ignited in him a passion for revenge so focused and so blazing hot that he spent every waking hour of every day training himself in every conceivable way to be the living instrument of death. Inigo's blade was made by his father, the greatest sword maker of his age. It took Domingo Montoya a year of constant, grueling, exhausting work to craft it. But when he was done, it was utterly perfect in every way. It was described as the greatest sword since Excalibur. On the other hand, Zorro has... it's just a sword. I mean, it's probably an okay sword. But what really sets
It's a pretty good sword.
It's
a pretty
He's
good
a noble. He
Just
can buy
saying.
a pretty good sword.
Yeah.
What really sets Inigo apart, though, is his willpower. When Inigo wants to win, nothing will stand in his way. During his final confrontation with Count Rugen, he is stabbed multiple times and he simply ignores the wounds. He becomes an unstoppable force that ultimately kills the exceptionally skilled Count, not only through unmatchable prowess, but also through sheer determination. So Zorro tends to fight mooks and buffoons. He enjoys playing with his enemies and rarely, if ever, encounters a foe that he takes seriously. Contrast that with Inigo, who uses every fight as an opportunity to hone his already ridiculous abilities. Despite being right-handed, he fights many enemies left-handed, not only to make him deadly with either hand, but also to ensure that he never treats a fight lightly. The one time in The Princess Bride that Inigo actually fights a group of mooks, he cuts all of them down in about 1 second flat. He doesn't mess around with them the way Zorro does. He doesn't show off with flashy but unnecessary cartwheels the way Zorro does. He just wins. As dangerous as both of these men are with swords, the one who underestimates his foe will be the one who dies.
All right. Very strong opening arguments from Team Inigo Montoya. Team Zorro, what do you have to offer?
Where there is injustice, where innocent men and women are oppressed and victimized, no name is more feared by the evil of heart than the curse of Capistrano himself, the masked man known as Zorro. Let me get this out of the way. Inigo Montoya is a great swordsman, and against any other opponent, his victory in this contest would likely be assured. But Zorro isn't just a great swordsman, though he is that as well. He is a brilliant tactician, a devious master of shadows and stealth, and this is a fight that the best fencer since the Corsican wizard simply cannot win. Inigo got where he is today not through brilliance or natural talent, but through relentlessness. He had a goal in mind that consumed his life, and that he worked toward with single-minded obsession. This is admirable, but it also spells his undoing against a smarter, more resourceful, and more creative opponent. Zorro's success stems not from his trained mastery of various already written down techniques, but from his skill at strategy, a gift that Inigo himself has admitted he does not possess. In one-on-one combat, Zorro always starts on the defensive, figuring out how his enemy thinks before pressing the advantage. He utilizes the element of surprise, striking from the darkness before melting away again, and he doesn't only rely on his sword. Zorro has been known to use a bullwhip to great effect, along with other resources like his horse Tornado, and even at times a pistol. Even if Inigo does somehow manage to put Zorro's life in danger, if Zorro is forced to a last resort, the battle will end like that iconic sword meets gun scene from Raiders. It's no accident that Inigo loses to Wesley in The Princess Bride, despite the fact that Wesley doesn't have Inigo's years of training. Wesley mastered the same arts Inigo did in a shorter period of time, simply because he's more intelligent and a more natural talent. Sometimes you can get A's on all the homework and still fail the test, and when Inigo's relentlessness fails him, he has nothing else to fall back on. And over the course of his career, he's 0-1 against men in black masks. Just saying. Don Diego de la Vega is a rich aristocrat who fights crime anonymously and uses stealth and strategy to strike fear into the hearts of his enemies in order to make his home a more just place. In other words, he's basically Batman. And Inigo Montoya is many things, but he's no Doom.
You are not allowed to start advocating for Batman right now, Miles. I'm just going to put a stop on that. After all we went through.
Hey, Inigo Montoya is many things, but he's no Doom. Or should I say, Doom!
All right, you can continue, but you watch that, all right?
I'm just saying, basically Batman.
All right.
He was the inspiration for Batman. Zorro, I think, is certainly the more capable in this match. Inigo may, and I say may, have the advantage in swordsmanship, but Zorro's athletic superiority, knowledge of strategy and tactics, and ability to psychologically manipulate his foes will make him the victor of any of these duels. This situation is also to win the affections of Elsa, and he is profoundly more capable as a leader and a romantic liaison.
Inigo has no experience in the romantic arena, by the way.
He has no time for it. He's too focused on revenge. But Diego has tons of experience in this area. He inspires his people. He always rises to challenges. He has a much greater sense of civic duty. Even if the event that it seems like Inigo has the upper hand, Zorro can, as he has on numerous occasions, escape this situation and come back with the strategic advantage. He has those other resources as well. He is a better rider. He is definitely better at navigating the terrain, and he has the bullwhip and pistol if he needs to go to it. But in the long run, this is going to be about who impresses Elsa and who Elsa is going to match with, and that is going to be Don Diego, who is capable of leading a nation and inspiring the people in a way that Inigo is just not going to be able to deal with because he spent his entire life focused on revenge. And I would like to point out, by the way, Zorro didn't murder his father, so he doesn't have that drive in this situation. Right. In terms of Zorro's romantic prowess, in The Mark of Zorro with Tyrone Power, in a single scene, he convinces a young woman to not run away and join a convent and instead help him hide his secret identity in her own uncle's house, who is out to get him. And he does this all in a single conversation. She has no idea who he is. And in a single conversation, he goes from dangerous fugitive to the love of her life, who she is going to protect from her own family. So he definitely has a way with charm. I think he's going to have the advantage in this situation, hands down.
Okay, strong opening
arguments.
Strong opening arguments from both sides. So I think we'll now hand it back over to Team Inigo Montoya.
You want to try that again without opening?
No, I'm good. Opening's good.
All right, fair enough. Opening arguments.
I trust the intelligence of our audience to figure out what I was trying to say. Take it away, Team Inigo Montoya, for some rebuttals.
Okay. Yes, Zorro has charm. He can woo the ladies, but Princess Elsa, or Queen Elsa, is not just any lady. She's very mentally tortured and traumatized and very broody, and I feel that she's not like her sister Anna, who is easily wooed by someone like Zorro. Now, if it was Zorro and Inigo Montoya having to woo Princess Anna, I can see this definitely being for Zorro. But it's Elsa. She's going to go for the broody guy with the revenge tale narrative origin story. She's gonna say, "What? Your father died and you saw it happen before his very eyes, hunting down a six-fingered man? Let me use my Omega level ice powers to help him down."
Also, I do feel like she would be more than a little suspicious of overly suave and confident guys after what happened to her sister. That's going to put her guard up, if nothing else. The truth of the matter...
Spoiler alert. Continue.
Look, that's just advice. That's just common sense.
Love is not an open door?
Yeah. If our listeners haven't seen Frozen, then I don't know what we're doing here. Right. Come on.
Zorro dabbles in...
If you haven't seen Frozen, go watch Wreck-It Ralph.
Colin, you already won with Vanellope. You can let that one go. You gotta let it go, Colin. Let it go.
Oh, stop, please.
All right, so Zorro dabbles in fencing. He learns whatever skills he needs to in order to stay ahead of whatever mooks that will be ineffectually trying to kill him that week. But Inigo spent 10 years squeezing rocks to strengthen his wrists so that he could control the point of his sword exactly. He practiced skipping, dodging, moving quickly, and sprinting. He gave himself the perfect fencer's build and reflexes. He traveled to Venice, Bruges, Budapest, countless other places besides, all so that there would be no question that he...
Are you suggesting that Inigo has a rockin' swimmer's bod? Is that what I'm hearing here?
I mean, listen, I got 2 eyes and a heart, man. I know what Mandy Patinkin does to me.
This is true. I agree. And remember, Inigo Montoya was the role that defined Mandy Patinkin's career until he became Saul Berenson in Homeland.
Very true. Very true. And in addition, Inigo's skill with the sword is not the only skill he has over Zorro, because in addition to being an inhumanly skilled fencer, Inigo Montoya is the master of crafting the perfect threats. You know why his most famous phrase is so incredibly well known and so constantly quoted? It's uncomplicated.
He says it 80 times in the movie.
It's no, Brad, no, because it is uncomplicated. It is pure. It is perfect malice. It is heartfelt. It is a completely honest promise of death. It
is directed towards someone who does not appear in this fight.
It is, but that person is a hardened killer and ice-cold torturer who, upon hearing it, turns around and runs away. Inigo is a master of psychological warfare. You guys have brought up that Zorro has a number of skills that Inigo doesn't have, and a number of weapons that he doesn't have. He has his whip, he has his gun, etc. And Zorro may have no trouble using underhanded techniques against mindless mooks and fat bureaucrats, but against an honorable foe who approaches him for an honorable duel, to step outside the bounds of that duel would be cowardly and would be tantamount to admitting that he's just not as good as his opponent. That would unquestionably be a defeat in the eyes of Zorro and in the eyes of his would-be love.
All right. Some very nice rebuttals from Team Inigo Montoya. Let's toss it back over to Team Zorro. Team Zorro, take it away.
I gotta address this whole thing about, Zorro only fights mooks, which that word, for some reason, has just been coming out of Dan's mouth over and over again,
Hey, it's a delightful word.
It is a delightful word, I'll admit that. But this is a fundamentally flawed perception. Zorro fights many people who are very good at swordsmanship, most notably his nemesis, Captain Ramon, who is written of in the original Curse of Capistrano books as being a very extremely skilled swordsman, and Zorro defeats him, just like he defeats everyone else. You say that Zorro, spends all his time playing with his opponents because they're not good enough to warrant his full attention. That's not true. The fact of the matter is he spends all his time playing with his opponents because he's so good that he can afford to do that. It's not their weakness that we're looking at here. It's his strength.
I don't know about that, Miles, because there's a scene in Mask of Zorro where Zorro fights off 2 foes at once single-handedly. And, that seems impressive, but then you look at who he's fighting. So one of them is Don Rafael Montero, who looks to be about 70 years old. And the other one, Harrison Love, is swinging his rapier two-handed like a baseball bat. The
Mask of Zorro doesn't apply here, sir.
Well, I'm just saying, you never...
It's not Zorro.
Well...
yeah, that's not Don Diego de la Vega.
In all fairness,
Antonio Banderas.
In all fairness, Mr. Schneiderman, I offered you the opportunity to clarify which Zorro you were using, and you turned it down.
I thought it was clear we were using Diego.
Quite frankly, I was looking forward to us having Bunny Wigglesworth as the
If we're extending this to parodies, yes.
That's my Zorro. He was always my Zorro growing up.
One thing we didn't mention before that Zorro is extremely good at, and I think Brad might have some more to say about this, is the fact that he's really great at taunting and needling and angering his opponents into making a mistake. And I don't think that would be too hard with a guy like Inigo.
It really wouldn't. Inigo has been angered before, and this goes back to what Dan was saying about the taunting and saying that Zorro is playing with his foes because he doesn't see them as real enemies. This is part of his fighting strategy. He is giving them his undivided attention, and included in that is taunting. That is a legitimate skill, and he does use it to make sure that his foes are angered and likely to make a mistake. And Inigo is exactly the type of person to do that. As we see, his entirety of his mission is fueled by revenge. So
he takes himself so seriously.
Yeah. it would be very easy for Zorro to goad this guy into making a mistake.
The difference there is that most of Zorro's foes are exactly as threatening, or would be exactly as threatening if you replace their swords with fun noodles. Inigo's on a slightly different plane than most
That's
of...
just not true. Inigo's whole 20-year mission is to fight one count. Zorro takes down counts every week who are skilled in swordsmanship. He has an advantage here as well. He has more opponents, and they are all skilled.
The whole nobility of California in Zorro's day and age, part of being a man is knowing how to fight and to use a sword effectively. These are not just people who are like, goons off the street, level 1 villains from some kind of arcade game. I mean, these are people who are steeped in a culture of testosterone and a culture of, you are not a man unless you fight. I mean, you see this in the way Diego de la Vega's alter ego presents itself. Like, people talk all the time about, like, oh, Diego de la Vega, like, he wears a sword, sure, but only ornamentally. He doesn't like bloodshed. He doesn't like violence. That's part of Zorro's whole devious alter ego shtick. And if you read the Zorro books or see the older films, you can see a lot of that in terms of how all his opponents have grown up mastering fencing.
I just wanted to touch really quickly on the whole Zorro wouldn't use his ingenuity and creativity in fighting because it would be dishonorable. This is not a straight duel. They are approaching each other as burglars. I don't believe there's a whole lot of honor in dispatching a burglar. Zorro will take him out quick and not worry about offending this guy.
So in Zorro's head, he's thinking, oh yeah, our story is going to be Elsa and me looking at each other and saying, oh, you remember when we first met? Yeah, there was that guy who was trying to kill you with a sword, and I tried to fight him off with a sword, but he was better than me, so I just hit him with my whip. Oh, that was so romantic.
That's certainly the smarter option. That's for damn sure.
Elsa respects that.
You talk about this culture of machismo. That's not gonna, he comes from a culture where honor is everything, and he is in a situation where he really needs to impress this girl.
The thing is, he doesn't share that culture. He is not cut from the same cloth as the people he's fighting. He's better than they are.
He has no problem doing what he needs to do in order to get the upper hand in the situation, because overall he sees the larger picture. He's out to fight corruption and deal justice, and he's going to do whatever it takes to do that.
But these guys are fighting, like we said earlier, as strangers in the night, in a dark duel.
Exchanging glances.
Yeah, I think this is the real romance here.
Yeah.
Story.
Staring into each other's dark,
my only
Spanish
true
eyes.
equal.
Well, I mean, Elsa has been woken up, though, and on the subject of Zorro taunting his enemies and undermining them, Elsa's gonna hear some of these taunts, too, and she seems like the type that will side with Inigo if Zorro starts taunting him and being a little bit of a bully.
I'll say this much. Inigo might start this fight strong, but as soon as Zorro gets any kind of advantage, even if it's briefly, you know what Inigo's gonna do? He's gonna, question himself and sink into depression and go find a bar, because that's what he does when things don't go his way. Zorro's barbs are going to get under his skin, and then he's just going to crumble, his personality crushing under the weight of his own insecurity as he realizes he's not necessarily the greatest swordsman of all time, and certainly not the greatest lover.
I didn't want to fight too dirty right away, but Inigo here, his 20-year mission that you say he spends the entire time training, he doesn't.
He spends 10 years training.
Yeah. He starts to just take jobs kidnapping princesses to pay the bills. Not a very honorable thing to do. He is found drunk in the forest, and then he goes back there and starts drinking again when he is defeated by a man in black. And he doesn't know how to plan. He doesn't know how to take initiative. He needs somebody to tell him what to do. And when he doesn't have that single focus, he gives up really easily. He doesn't know how to pull himself back up, and he easily falls into depression and even alcoholism.
He has a pretty single focus right now. I don't think he needs Vizzini prodding him to fight against a dude coming at him with a sword in front of a gorgeous woman.
Well, we don't really know that motivates Inigo. He's never had any romantic encounters. I mean, frankly, we have no notion of how much the lure of a beautiful woman is going to, how much that's going to hold.
Do you think he just?
She's not any beautiful woman. She's Princess Elsa with her heart of ice. And her
that's a good point.
Equally broody, tortured soul. They might view each other as kindred spirits.
Well said, sir. Well said.
Brad, I believe you had one final point to make that I think swings this whole thing irrevocably in our favor.
Sure. Yeah, if you guys want to throw in a closing point for each side, feel free to do so. After that, we're gonna hop into some other sort of thing that might happen after we're done with the rebuttals. I don't know what it might be, but
I have no idea what that might be, but
Could
Brad?
be any. I don't know what you mean by that. So we included the parody in this discussion. We might as well include some of the Zorro comics as well. So in some of the Zorro comics, there is one. I believe it is called Long Box of the Damned #4. And the title of the comic is Zorro versus Dracula, in which Zorro takes on Bram Stoker's version of Dracula and does emerge.
Bram Stoker?
Bram Stoker?
Is that the parody version?
The geriatric vampire.
Yeah. Oh, that wasn't where I was going, but that works too.
Anyway, he takes on Dracula and he is able to emerge victorious despite Dracula having all of these powers. There's also one where he takes on Jaguar warriors who have mystical powers of jaguars. And there's also one where he takes on the Dragon Riders, which are the world's greatest assassins. And he also is able to dispatch all 4 of them pretty easily. So he has advantage on all of those. And then I had one final thing about Elsa, which is she might have this brooding connection with Inigo, but above and all, she is driven by the love of her people. And she is going to choose somebody who is capable of ruling Arendelle well, and that's not Inigo. That is Zorro.
Well said. Also, he beat Dracula. Just saying.
He beat Dracula.
Well, Abraham Van Helsing defeats Dracula, but Inigo Montoya would totally defeat Abraham Van Helsing in a sword fight. Like, this isn't, it's not like a paper, rock, scissors sort of thing. It's not like, you're encountering Inigo in basically his ideal environment, which is to say, with a sword in his hand and with a sword in your hand. Like, it doesn't matter how many vampires you've beaten. It doesn't matter how many assassins you've beaten, because none of them were the greatest swordsmen in history.
Well, you brought up quality of opponents, and we're just saying that,
Got him.
Yeah, Zorro has better quality of opponents over the course of his career.
So with that, I think that it might be time for a lightning round.
What?
Oh my god!
What?
I totally didn't see this coming.
Lightning in this.
How dare you?
So do you remember those stars we were taking bets on earlier? One of them just went
Yes.
supernova, actually, it turns out, and it made a black hole. It created this giant gravity well that was largely focused in the sort of Arendelle-ish area. It's very scientific. I don't have time to get into all the details, but regardless, Inigo Montoya.
Citations in the credits.
Yeah, you can check the show notes, and there's links to articles that will explain all of this. It's very complicated science.
Have fun with that, Miles.
Inigo Montoya and Zorro get yanked up off the ground and pulled off into the sky into a black hole. And when they awaken, they find themselves whisked to a galaxy far, far away. And it is also a long time ago.
Oh no!
Oh yes.
So they find themselves on different planets spread apart from one another. They spend a year or two adjusting to their new life in this strange galaxy. Both of them hear stories of an ancient order of swordsmen that are no longer around, but they were apparently called Jedi, and they had mastery over something known as the Force. Both of them started training in this art and made for themselves some ancient weapons of this strange order, the lightsaber. After a few years of traveling around and having wacky space adventures of one sort or another, Zorro heard that the Empire was moving in, sticking its imperial evil fingers into Cloud City, and has started infiltrating it. And so he decided to go there to try to root out corruption. Whereas Inigo, who is unable to get his revenge against Count Rugen, searching for a way home. But in the meantime, he's spending his time tracking down people who betray and murder the fathers of other people. And he heard about this guy named Darth Vader, who apparently betrayed and murdered this guy Anakin Skywalker. He also finds himself on Cloud City after he gets a tip that he'll be seeing this area. And both of them at the same time catch the eye of another beautiful princess who happens to be on Cloud City at this time.
Oh, Lord.
I don't know if I need to say her name, but
Say her name!
Princess Leia.
Oh.
Now say it again, but sexier.
And both of them climbing up the balcony to get a glimpse of this second princess, spot each other, mistake each other for burglars again. This time draw out their new swords, which are lightsabers, of course, and decide they're going to have a duel all throughout the different areas within Cloud City, and using their newly acquired lightsaber skills and their newly acquired force powers. So, with these changing circumstances, who will win this new duel of the fates?
Oh, man.
Team Inigo went first in the main round, so Team Zorro will go first in the lightning round. Team Zorro, take it away.
Oh,
Well, I
Well,
can tell
go
you
ahead.
exactly what would
Yeah.
happen.
Okay, go for it.
This is all very clear. They've both been transported to a strange and distant galaxy. Zorro is going to adapt very easily. He's going to discover the corruption. He's going to fight against it. He's going to rally the people. He's going to take to training in the Jedi ways very easily because he has a lot of talent, just as he picked up fencing very easily. So he's also going to be able to pick up a lot of these force powers, which enhance his natural abilities like jumping and agility. And those are going to play into his skill set really, really nicely. Meanwhile, Inigo, he's going to be devastated. He's going to go to the nearest,
Cantina?
He's going to go to the nearest cantina. He's going to head over to Mos Eisley, and he's going to get himself nice and drunk, and he's going to despair. And then when he finally does get around to training, he's going to suffer because he doesn't have as long. The dedication is there, but maybe the natural skill isn't. He gets impatient. He goes a little dark. His going to look a little different. I think we know what happens ultimately in this situation. I think we know that Zorro is going to have the natural advantage. And I just like to say he's not going to have to climb that balcony. He's going to force sleep it.
That's right. And, I honestly can't see Inigo taking that well to force training. I mean, maybe he'll be able to do it eventually, like if he, squeezes rocks in his mind for 10 years. I don't know. But he's not the kind of guy who would naturally just gravitate to using the Force well, whereas Zorro and Diego de la Vega is just naturally that kind of person, very much into things like art and beauty and peace, using his skills for the oppressed as opposed to the prevalence of bloodshed, as opposed to Inigo, who basically is a prize fighter in The Princess Bride until he runs into Wesley. With Diego being more naturally prevalent, a more natural learner of the Force than Inigo, I think the actual duel between them, the lightsaber duel, suddenly becomes more even. I mean, obviously, we had talked earlier about the fact that Zorro would use other skills besides his sword fighting to take down Inigo. Now, if it does come down to a strict lightsaber duel, I think Zorro is on even footing and might actually have an advantage. And I just want to say, Zorro's signature move, the cutting the Z in somebody's cheek or whatever, with a lightsaber, that's just going to kill him.
Yeah.
Instantly, he's going to have no face. So...
All right, Team Inigo.
Well, I beg to differ and disagree that Inigo doesn't have the discipline to learn the Force. In fact, if anything, he, with his most singular mindset, is perfect for learning the Force. Whether he become a Jedi or, as you guys say, he's ventured to the dark side. In fact, I think you guys don't want him as a Sith Lord because he's going to be amazing with Force lightning bolts on the level of Emperor Palpatine. And you don't want that in Cloud City, and you don't want that in a fight. On top of that, I really feel that, again, he's going to be fighting with a saber weapon. He's going to be training in that. That's going to be perfect for him. This is no different from how he trained when he was younger. If anything, he's going to take to Force training really well. And he's going to be a force to be reckoned with because this is what he's good at. Yes, Zorro is a jack of all trades. He's amazing, but he's more a Han Solo character in this situation, not a Luke Skywalker or broody Anakin Skywalker.
That's good, because Luke Skywalker loses in Cloud City.
You know what? Oddly enough, I actually agree largely with what Team Zorro said. I think that Zorro is a character who tends to learn things more easily and more naturally. And I think that Inigo is the sort of character who needs to work at and learn things. Zorro, because he is used to learning things easily, will take, I'm just going to pick some random words here. He will take the quick and easy path, if you will, because that is what he is used to doing. His natural skill with the Force will lead to arrogance. Arrogance leads to douchebaggery. Douchebaggery leads to conflict. Conflict leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
What does that lead to?
None of those things lead to defeat.
Lead to Kevin Bacon. I don't know. But look, that is the path of the dark side. The path which Inigo walks, in which he has to discipline himself, in which he has to school himself at every individual step along the way, will teach him not only how to use a lightsaber, but when to use a lightsaber. Not only how to use the Force, but when to use the Force. And when it comes down to it, when the two of them do finally meet, And Zorro finds that his opponent has spent a lot more time studying the Force and the ways of the lightsaber and the ways of the Jedi than he has. He is going to panic. Because you see, Zorro considers himself a good guy, but the way he's going to practice the Force is the way of the dark side. This will lead to an inner conflict, a conflict which Inigo himself will not have. And in that moment, that's all the difference that Inigo is going to need to defeat him.
None of that's going to matter because Zorro has proven to be much more capable in using his environment and his surroundings to his advantage than Inigo. So Zorro's just going to kick Inigo into the carbon freezer and be done with it. There's going to be like a little, a little statue in Jabba's palace of like, Inigo with the six-fingered sword, like,
While I wholeheartedly disagree with you, I will say I would definitely buy a toy of that.
Well, on that note, you guys have given me a lot to think about. I've gone back and forth on this several times, and I'm not exactly certain where I have come down on the end. So I'm going to need a few minutes. I'm going to retire to my chambers. Please be friendly now. Bye.
I just want to say you guys are awesome.
Yeah, no, you guys are absolutely naturals.
Good form.
Yeah,
Thank
you definitely take to arguing about absolutely useless things very easily.
The podcast is really popular with me and my boyfriend. It's become a bonding moment for us when we're just hanging out. I just like play it in the background while we're playing video games because this is our stuff that we talk about. Like, who's the better telepath, Professor Xavier or Emma Frost?
Oh, man. That's how this whole thing got started, because Dan and I think ever since we first met, have been having these conversations. You're still wrong about Johnny Cage, sir.
No.
He would totally beat Batman.
No, Batman has that one. Can I just say, Miles, by the way, the fact that you talked me out of using Wesley for this match, who is a man in black with a mask and like a jack of all trades and a fencer, you're a terrible.
I didn't talk you out of that.
You're a terrible person, and you should feel
that was a group decision.
One started by you and held aloft largely by you, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, fair enough. It was hard enough going against you guys with fucking Inigo. Wesley, I don't even know if we'd have a chance. That guy's the ultimate Mary Sue.
Yeah. He has some serious plot armor.
He beats that 10 years of training. And how many years was it with Dread Pirate Roberts? Like 5?
Yeah.
Like 5, maybe, when he was doing all, he learned how to sword fight and also how to ingest poison.
I will say that the book goes into a lot more detail as to why Wesley beats Inigo in that fight, and it makes it very clear that there was exactly one factor, and even that only made Wesley like fractionally faster than Inigo. The movie, I think, makes it seem a lot more one-sided.
What was that one factor again? I haven't read the book in a while.
It was...
I went over Inigo's backstory during research, but I haven't...
Yeah, Inigo is a lot better at fighting in closed areas where there's like a lot of obstacles, whereas Wesley is better at fighting in big open spaces, and so Wesley just like forces him into a large open space. And that makes him like just fast enough to get a hit on.
So he manipulates the surroundings. That makes sense.
Yeah, well, you know what? Elsa's balcony is huge, my friend. She is like a princess. That her balcony is about the size of my entire house in terms of the floor.
Yeah,
plan.
but Zorro is no Wesley. You said so yourself.
I have returned from my chambers. So you guys both.
Leia unfroze you from the carbonite.
They did. I've been thinking it over. This is a tough one. As I said, I did go back and forth several times on this. I feel like, as we've said, if all they're doing is sword fighting, if they're like fencing in the Olympics and like not allowed to step outside or anything like that, I definitely think that Inigo would have the advantage in that case. And I feel sort of like, given what you guys had to work with, Team Inigo made a lot of really, really awesome arguments. I kept on thinking that you guys were out, and you guys both were pulling awesome stuff out of your butts, especially all of the great Frozen references Anton was doing. It totally scored a lot of points.
There is a reason why there is a gay on this show, right?
That's right.
But yeah, I feel like overall, a sort of more well-rounded human being and a person who's a little bit more inventive and a little bit more creative. And if the fight goes long, someone who can just find more ways of getting advantages over time would be Zorro. And I think that if he's not fighting for something he really cares about, Inigo's not going to have that drive we were talking about. He's going to be a little slower and just not quite as creative as Zorro. And I think Zorro's going to beat him in this one. So,
yes. Wow. Yes.
Wow.
Well, you're wrong, but it's fine.
Still keeping my streak alive. Still haven't won or lost 2 in a row. Goddamn right.
All right.
Well fought, you guys. Well
Indeed.
fought.
Indeed.
Very, very close, as I've said, as entertaining as all sword fights should be, even if it's a sword fight of the mind. Everyone we would want to thank this week is on the show.
Is already here,
Yes.
so thank you guys.
So,
Yes, genuinely, like, thank you guys for coming. It was really cool having you, and yeah, you absolutely jumped to this occasion and just were amazing.
And thank you. This was so much fun.
Yes, thank you. This is great.
And I just want to say that you guys should check out Anton's work on projectfandom.com, where he's covering the Muppet Show right now, I believe. Is that right?
Episode 2
love
comes
the
out
new
tomorrow
Muppet Show.
morning. Yeah, last night's episode was really great. So
It was-
my review comes out tomorrow. I'm loving how for the first 2 episodes it's very Miss Peggy centric, and she's my bacon.
Character.
thank you, everyone, for listening to Smash Fiction this week. Join us next week when our match will be Brock Sampson versus Sterling Archer.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his works at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow Smash Fiction on Facebook at facebook.com/smashfictionpodcast and on Twitter at smashficpodcast.
Find us on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
Welcome to Smash Fiction. Sorry.
Yes,
All right.
topical.
Well, it's good that we have equal opportunity discrimination with accents.
God.
One nation at a time. We will alienate everyone.
Yeah, we got a list. We're just checking off.
I figure this is a good opportunity to get the Castilian accent out of the way as a thing
Okay,
to make
good,
fun of.
good.
Is that what that was? Okay, good to know.
Oh, that's exactly what that was.